All right, everyone, we'll get the meeting started. Everyone ready to go? Can the members of commission joining us remotely, can you just confirm that you can hear me, please?
Councillor Nelson, I can hear you.
Perfect, thank you. All right, call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the March 26th, 2024 Regina Planning Commission meeting. We acknowledge that we are here on traditional lands of the Treaty 4 territory, a treaty signed with 35 First Nations across southern Saskatchewan and parts of Alberta and Manitoba, and the original lands of the Cree, the Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. The City of Regina owes its strength and vibrancy to these lands and the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory, as well as settlers from around the world who continue to be welcomed here and call Regina home. Some members of Commission and City Administration, and I believe some delegations, may be attending the meeting today through video conferencing, and I would like to remind those members of the following. Please ensure that your video camera and microphone are turned off until such time as it is your turn to speak. Afterwards, if I would ask that you could turn the mic off as well as the camera. The reports from today's meeting will be considered by City Council at its meeting scheduled for April 10th, 2024, and the meeting to register as a delegation for that meeting is 12 p.m. on Monday, April 8th, 2024. Could I get a motion to approve the public agenda at the call of the chair with the following adjustments? Add communications RPC 24-10 from Frank Korvmaker, Architectural Heritage Society of Saskatchewan, as well as communication 24-11 from James Bogus, Regina Airport Authority, and we'll add Angela L. of the Al Ritchie Association, and the withdrawal of delegation Jolene McDonald as they are unable to attend the meeting. So could I get a motion to approve that amended agenda, please? All right, Maynard, thank you very much. Is there any questions, comments, or issues with the agenda? Hearing and seeing none, can we get approval for or anyone opposed to passing the agenda? All right, hearing no opposition, motion carries. I'll need a motion to adopt the minutes from the February 27th, 2024 meeting as well. John, thank you. Any errors or omissions from the minutes from February 27th? Any opposed? All right, hearing no opposition, motion carries. Our first item is RPC 24-6, Zoning Bylaw Amendment 1602 Winnipeg Street. I'm going to ask, we have no delegation for that one. No delegation. Perfect. Great, thank you. Could ask Mr. Sellinger to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Planning Commission members. The applicant/landowner is proposing to rezone 1602 Winnipeg Street from light industrial to mixed large market. The purpose of the rezoning is to allow future commercial development to occur. No development application is currently being reviewed. If the rezoning is approved, the applicant/owner intends to consolidate the subject property with their property adjacent to the south to facilitate the expansion of A and B auto body. The subject property is located within the core neighborhood plan, which generally identifies the subject property as commercial. The rezoning to mixed use allows for greater flexibility on the site, which is a form of intensification. The proposed rezoning conforms with the OCP, as well as standards and requirements of the zoning bylaw. Thank you, and administration is happy to answer any questions.
Perfect, thank you very much. First, I'll ask for a motion for RPC 24-6. Perfect. Jordan, thank you very much. Are you comfortable opening up with questions if you may have any?
Sure, I have a quick question, thanks.
Perfect. Sorry, just let me count your seat there. Do I got the right mic on?
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question, and it wouldn't sway my vote either way in terms of supporting or not supporting. Can a property have two different zones attached to it? Can it be zoned in two different ways, or is consolidation require rezoning?
Mr. Mario, go ahead, please.
Through the chair, there are instances where a property has a split zoning designation, but which it is possible, but it's certainly not good practice to do that. It's better to have one consistent set of regulations on one property to ensure that regulations are clear and there's no risk of approving anything that ought not to be approved. So as a matter of practice, it's better to have one zoning designation across.
Great, thank you. I have no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll look to members online if there's any hands. Councillor Nelson, go ahead, please.
Thank you for that. Just a public consultation, was there one done? Was there any, I'm not seeing it here, maybe I'm missing something? Through the chair?
You'd like to take that? Mr. Mario?
Yeah, through the chair, our standard public consultation was done. We circulated to the required 75 meters, put up signage, and put notice on our website. There was, in the communications section, reference to one letter of support that was submitted back to us.
Okay, sorry I missed that, and that's right, I had that in my notes. Thank you very much for that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Seeing no further hands or questions online or in person, I'll ask the clerks to call the vote, please.
Thanks, Tyson.
Councillor Nelson in favor.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. So Mark?
We'll do our best.
Sure. Let me, is that a little bit better for you?
It's as good as it gets, sorry.
Thanks. Otherwise, we start to risk some feedback, so we'll do the best that we can. Okay, Mr. Aston.
In favor.
Mr. Casier.
In favor.
Commissioner Sontag.
In favor.
Commissioner Doss.
In favor.
Thank you. Commissioner Hopkins.
In favor.
Commissioner Wilson.
In favor.
Mr. Chair.
In favor.
Motion is carried.
Okay, thank you very much. Oops, sorry, going around with that. Our next item is RPC 24-7, Heritage Property Designations. I'll turn the floor over to Ms. Pfeiffer to introduce the report.
Good afternoon. The report that I'm here to introduce is for heritage property designations for this year. Administration has received applications for the designation of 5 heritage properties and is recommending that all 5 be designated as municipal heritage properties under the Heritage Property Act and in alignment with the City of Regina's Heritage Inventory Policy. These properties represent patterns of development in Regina between 1907 and 1928 in the Cathedral and Lakeview neighborhoods. They reflect a range of architectural styles, including Edwardian four-square, craftsman bungalow, and several arts and crafts styles. Designation is an important tool for the city to support the preservation of our local cultural and architectural heritage. In line with contemporary heritage conservation, the city's heritage programs aim to represent a range of time periods and touch on modest day-to-day life, as well as the lives of prominent leaders and change makers in the city. The heritage value of the properties being recommended today relate to the style of architecture they represent, and in some cases, former owners and individuals associated with the properties. Conserved heritage homes and commercial and institutional buildings support the city's goal to make Regina an interesting and culturally vibrant place to live and visit. And myself, along with our Senior Planner for Heritage, Mr. Addy Gay, and the rest of the team are here to answer any questions you might have.
Perfect, thank you. I'll look to a member of commission to move the report. John, thank you. Did you have some questions? Go ahead, please.
I don't really have any questions.
Okay, that's fine. There's no one at the console controlling the volume for folks joining remotely, but if you could put your hand up if you have any questions. Seeing none? Okay. That was pretty straightforward. So I see no questions from commission. I just want to say good work. I think we've seen a lot of movement on the heritage file. I love how many of these were seeing come before commission and council. Good work, staff. I guess we'll call the vote.
Councillor Nelson's in favor.
John.
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Aston.
In favor.
Try that again, sorry.
In favor.
Thank you, Mr. Aston. Commissioner Gaisier.
In favor.
Commissioner Sontag.
In favor.
Commissioner Doss.
In favor.
Commissioner Hopkins.
In favor.
Commissioner Wilson.
In favor.
And Councillor Nelson, I heard your vote is in favor. And Mr. Chair.
In favor.
Sorry, I apologize. I thought we were on, I thought we were casting our votes on the computer. That's why I was typing in, so I apologize for that.
It's okay. Thank you, Councillor. Motion is carried.
Thank you. Do we need a separate vote on the communication from Frank Corbin-Maker?
So we were just doing receiving also any posts. You'll need to move.
Yeah, for sure. So just for the record, we're going to have to accept a submission from Frank Corbin-Maker officially from the Architectural Heritage Society of Saskatchewan. I just need a mover for that if I could. Thank you. Jordan? Any opposed to the acceptance of the communication? Seeing none? So it's just simple receive and file. Thank you. Okay, our final item is RPC 24-8 Housing Accelerator Fund. We have a number of delegations here. So I'm just going to work through the list and we'll start with Mr. Jim Elliott. Jim, you're no stranger to this forum. You know the drill. 5 minutes. And if you could, just introduce yourself for the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. My name is Jim Elliott, and I live in the Al Ritchie area. I guess for purposes of this meeting, I was around in January when some of this discussion around this accelerator fund began, and at that meeting I hope you heard that very clearly from the Executive Director of the Provincial Capital Commission that the Wascana Height Overlay Zone restricts lands in the city to that 13 meters. And any removal at this point I think is inappropriate as well as ill-advised. There clearly is a cadre of developers chomping at the bit to get access to the lucrative properties that are within that verge of the of Wascana Park. But I guess my first question is, are you going to be the first ones to in fact start to scar that view from this with the citizens of Regina and Wascana Park, or in fact, as was stated in January, tarnish that gem for the city of Regina? There are a number of areas in the city where I think this would come into play, and I look back at Roberts Plaza as being one of the perhaps the worst mistakes we've made in the past, but you also could be looking at similar things on Albert Street, in Gladmore Park, on Quinn Drive, as well as the Lakeshore Mall development properties. I guess what is also, and again, in my mind, in some respects, is much more problematic when we discuss this overlay is that at a meeting I was at this past Thursday with about 85 residents of the city, with both city officials as well as the developer of a proposal from a developer within this overlay zone, that in fact, when that city official was asked, why are we even discussing this, and if in fact at the current position the development being proposed was out of order and should be rejected out of hand, his comments were that in fact those restrictions are simply suggestions. And I guess I would question his interpretation of a statute of this provincial government as well as the Wascana Master Plan. Those are not simply suggestions, but in fact reasons for considering rejection of any types of developments like this. The other thing that is also inherent, I hope, in your minds as well, is that this overlay change is not necessary if we're looking at additional housing and accelerator fund proposals in the city. There are very few locations where that could be complicated, and therefore, in my mind, again, it should be entirely struck off this motion. I guess I'll finish with a simple point, is that if in fact we want affordable housing in the city, we could accommodate 5 years of immigration to the city by building out 2 parcels of land in the city which have nothing to do with Wascana Centre. These would be the Taylor Field lands as well as the yard lands on Dutney Avenue. Those could have accommodated close to 15,000 residents moving into the city, and again, would not impact the jewel of our crown with any type of development proposal. So I'll repeat again, I guess at this point, that you should not be changing the overlay at this point, and in fact, I will be also corresponding with Wascana Centre Authority or the Provincial Capital Commission Board of Directors and suggest in there that they should not do either. So thank you. I'll answer any comments.
Thank you. Any comments or any questions from Commission? Seeing none. Jim, thank you very much. Our next delegate is Daryl Mihail. Daryl, if you wish, please just take the podium, introduce yourself for the record, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Daryl Mihail. I live in Douglas Park, close to Wascana Park, I guess. So I'm here to express my opposition to the proposed amendment that seeks to repeal the height restriction in the Wascana height overlay zone. A number of reasons, I guess, that I think this shouldn't be considered. Number one, preservation of cultural heritage. Wascana Park is a vital part of Regina's cultural and historical identity. It encompasses significant landmarks such as Regina, Wascana Centre. These landmarks natural beauty of the city, but also hold immense symbolic value. Allowing unrestricted heights in areas adjacent to the park would compromise the visual integrity and historical significance of these landmarks. Second, environmental impact. Introducing taller buildings In particular, multifamily buildings will have adverse impacts on the local environment. Increased urban density tends to lead to more waste being generated, higher energy consumption, greater strain on sewer and water infrastructure, and potential disruption to the natural habitats in the park. The current height restrictions serves as a safeguard against these negative environmental impacts, promoting sustainable development practices. Quality of life. A balance between built and natural environments is crucial for maintaining high quality of life for residents. The Wascana Height Overlay Zone, with its restrictions, height restrictions, contributes to the aesthetic appeal and the livability of the surrounding neighborhoods. Allowing taller buildings would lead to overshadowing, reduced sunlight access, and sense of overcrowding, diminishing the overall well-being of the area or community in that area. Historical, number 4, historical and architectural integrity. Wascana Park features a unique blend of historical and contemporary architectural styles that contribute to the charm and appeal. Repealing the height restriction could result in the construction of buildings that are out of scale or character with the existing urban park fabric of Wascana Park, detracting from the overall visual appeal of the area. Traffic and infrastructure strain. Increased residential building heights correlate with higher population densities, which can strain existing transportation networks and infrastructure. Without proper planning and upgrades, this could lead to congestion, decreased accessibility to the park, and challenges in maintaining reasonable access to the park for all city residents. There are already traffic congestion and logistical challenges around the park during special events, and allowing unrestricted residential building heights and increased population density around the park is only going to add to this. The final point I guess I'd like to make is community engagement. The decision to repeal the height restriction should involve meaningful consultation and engagement with the affected community members, stakeholders, experts in urban planning and heritage preservation, and it's essential to consider the diverse perspectives and expertise before making significant changes that impact the fabric of the city. So in conclusion, I would urge the Regina Planning Commission to reconsider the proposed amendment and explore alternative strategies that achieve the city's housing development objectives without compromising the cultural heritage, environmental sustainability, historical and architectural integrity, and quality of life with regard to Wascana Park. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from Commission? I see none. Thank you very much for your deposition. You may return to the gallery. Our next delegation is Gordon Schwartz.
How do you do?
Please go ahead.
My name is Gord Schwartz. I'll be speaking on the repeal of the Wascana Height overlay also. Wascana Park was originally created in 1883, established in 1912 as the largest urban park in Canada. Wascana Park runs through the center of the whole city. It is the crown jewel. I am a lifetime resident of Regina and Douglas Park. Wascana Park will be here long after you and I are gone. The reason why this park has been so successful and well loved by the citizens of Regina and tourists is because it has followed a 100-year plan. The fact that all the buildings have been kept below the tree canopy has kept the park beautiful and the community draw intact. The Wascana Center Master Plan of 2016 asks to consider limiting builds within 300 meters of the park to stay within 13 meters in height. It specifically states on page 60 that a pressing threat to the scenic Wascana image is in threat by private development adjacent to the center as demonstrated by the visual intrusion of Roberts Plaza. The Provincial Capital Corp has expressed a desire that the city respect and follow the overlay requirements. I strongly agree and would ask the city to comply with the overlay boundaries and agreements and not repeal the zoning height bylaw. Most tree canopy in Wascana Park tops out at 13 meters. These restrictions ensure the integrity and beauty of the park are upheld. An example of a recent and thoughtful new development in the boundary is the Connexus building on College Avenue, where the building was built below the height of the canopy. Similar to most buildings in Wascana Park area, I ask you, why would our city planners consider changing this beautiful aspect of our city, of our prized parks? Why would you want to ruin Wascana Park and take away the beauty that it has held for over 100 years? I ask, are there corporate or personal agendas at play for profit or some at the permanent expense of the citizens who make this city their community? There are plenty of suitable areas in this city to continue to densify neighborhoods at the reasonable guidelines of 2.5 times current neighborhood density as laid out in the official community plan, which cost city taxpayers $3.6 million. There is no need to infringe on the sightlines and beauty of our park when simple incentivization through proper planning would encourage development of downtown core, which would accomplish densifying and rejuvenate what is really missing in our city, rather than permanently removing beauty that is already here. I also find it suspicious that the city seems to be so feverishly planning their strategy on increasing housing density, specifically in the Wascana Center at this time. There is an active rezoning proposal at 535 Douglas Avenue to increase an institutionalized zone parcel of land within the Wascana boundary to low rise. This proposal is within the 300 meter and the 13 meter height restriction. This rezoning would allow for a 20 meter building to be erected within the park boundary, higher than Wascana Hill, Scenic Hill, which is used regularly, sticking out 2 stories above the canopy. The Winchester Group company connected to this egregious development proposal has ties to city officials. And I do not find the boundary changes considerations at hand to be coincidence, given the lobbying effort being employed by this company towards public officials. I am very opposed to this development, and it will infringe on the guidelines that have been set to uphold the beauty of this park and the communities that reside around it. In closing, I strongly ask that you do not repeal the height overlay and that you enforce them to all that care to change them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from commission? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next delegation is Janice LaBelle. Janice, whenever you're ready.
My name is Janice LaBelle, and I have lived in the Douglas Park area of Regina for almost 40 years. I am a concerned citizen asking City Council to not repeal the height restriction in the Wascana Height Overlay Zone. Wascana Park started out as a forest planted by hand and a lake carved from prairie soil, an idea conceived so many decades ago. Wascana Park was intended to be a gathering spot for all citizens to enjoy their own little piece of nature. Everyone in Regina has a connection to this park. Wascana Center was not developed to make money for the city, but rather for citizens to have access to beautiful natural spaces. Regina citizens take pride in the decisions made decades ago to start planting trees where there wasn't a single tree in sight and to make a lake right in the middle of the city of Regina. Wascana Center is known as the jewel of Regina, and our park is one of the very few well-known parks in the middle of a Canadian city, and it is worth fighting for. Citizens want to keep this prized green space free of development. The expansion and densification of Regina should not be at the cost of beloved green space and views of our park. Our Wascana Center and bordering areas are not crucial for accelerating and expanding housing options in Regina. This type of development in these areas would compromise openness and view of the legislative building and lake, and with challenging vehicle traffic and parking and pedestrian safety. Adding buildings within Wascana Center will not do anything for the park other than bring on a busier park. Why does it matter where you build? The monetary part of even a small development in and around Wascana Center can raise large sums of money for the city, and the same case for the next piece of land and the next piece and the piece after that, until there is no park space left. And then you can't go back. It does matter where and what you build. Regina citizens are not inconvenienced by not living close to Wascana Center. Those of us that do live close are fortunate. Regina is an easily traveled city. We are not that large, and for generations before us, the generations before us had determination to use and visit the park and would take the streetcar or walk 10 blocks or 20 blocks or more. Winter of 2004, 20 years ago, became one of the biggest projects of Regina's history, the Big Dig. An ambitious project in Wascana Center to bring in dozens of pieces of machinery and hundreds of people that dug out the lake bed. Our Wascana Lake became better and more beautiful than before. From the very beginnings of Regina, Wascana Center was not intended to be used for commercial purposes. The park's heritage and integrity must be maintained. The recreation, beauty, and serenity of the park are what the people enjoy. A big fact of the Big Dig. March 21st, excavation of the lake was completed. And exactly 20 years today, on March 26, 2004, the spring runoff was released into the lake. The Provincial Capital Commission has expressed the desire for the city to maintain the overlay of the park to preserve the view of the legislative building, as well as protect the experiences of people in the park. They want to protect our park. My message to the city is don't devote energy and time and money to building inside the Wascana Center or bordering areas. There seems to be a lot of energy currently being spent to build in and around it, and hopefully there are no special circumstances that can justify the city to change the look and the feel of Wascana Center and bordering areas. Any land taken away from it for future high-rise residential or commercial areas, even the smallest encroachment on the parks and open spaces, and changing the look and feel of Wascana Center is a big deal. The city needs to resist what might seem like small-scale changes and developments in Wascana Park and bordering area, and focus on the abundance of other vacant lots throughout the city. Time and energy and money devoted to Wascana Center and area should continue to improve the green spaces for a richer, better used park for our citizens and visitors without losing its comfort, security, and familiarity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from Commission? Seeing none, thank you very much. Our next delegation is Norm Hoffert. Norm, when you could, just introduce yourself for the record. You have 5 minutes.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Norm Hoffert. I'm a resident of Douglas Park on Douglas Avenue. I'm here to speak about the development that is proposed in Douglas Park and surrounding area. Developments are not only about shelter, but they are also a feeling good in a space and community and culture. Douglas Park has both of these. They have long-standing residents and culture. It is a safe and quiet neighborhood that people know one another, families enjoy one another, and they respect one another's ability to be there. I'm not here to discuss the list of concerns. I'm sure the Planning Commission knows all of these. They've heard about them, the traffic and all that other kind of stuff, height restrictions and all that. I'm here on behalf of my community in Douglas Park, in a state that we have all want to reserve this neighborhood. One of the only communities that are left in this beauty. A high-rise density building is not and does not fit into this community. There are all kinds of other developments proposed and such that are going on in the city that would more than welcome that kind of building. The interest of a developer and possibly city council is really an abuse of power and a position that to influence and change the rules and procedures that a city have established throughout the years. Okay. You know the facts. You know there is no support for this kind of development. You should know that concerns are raised and in fact valid. And we ask you to not allow this development to happen. If you care about the city and the residents of Douglas Park, then there are many other developments that you can look to for that kind of structure to be built. Please reserve Douglas Park. There was a famous architect and designer, Frank Lloyd Wright, that wrote, "A doctor can bury his mistakes. An architect can only advise those clients to build vines." Please don't ask Douglas Park residents to plant vines. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from Commission? Seeing none, thank you very much. You may return to the gallery.
Thank you.
Our next delegation is Leona Reed. If you could, just introduce yourself for the record, and you have 5 minutes.
Awesome. Good afternoon. My name is Leona Reed, and I would like to speak to the proposed amendment of the current building height restriction from the Provincial Capital Commission has around Wascana Centre. I am opposed to removing this 13-meter height restriction. Regina is the capital and crown city. Wascana Park is the jewel of this beautiful city we all call home. We, the residents, have built Wascana Park to what it is today. Men and women have literally gotten their hands muddy, so we as a community have an alluring park to enjoy. It's a place to find peace, tranquility, and a place to be with nature. Decades ago, Wascana Authority had the foresight to implement this height restriction in order to protect and preserve this precious park. Changing the height restriction negatively changes the future of Wascana. We must keep and enforce the height restriction to continue to preserve and protect our park. If we don't protect and preserve our park, who will? This responsibility falls on our shoulders, the residents of Regina. I understand the priority of the housing development, but do we build within the perimeter of Wascana Park at the cost of Regina's jewel? The changes that have been made lately have all seemed to be set in place to pave the way for the developer. Is the city willing to drop the height restrictions around Wascana Park in order to allow developers to make money at the expense of our park and its bordering neighborhoods? I am one of many fortunate residents that share the border with Wascana Park. I am able to look down the street to see the lake, the legislative building, and Wascana's canopy of trees. There are many times that this makes me feel like I am not even in the city. Removing the PCC height restriction would be detrimental to Wascana Park and neighborhoods bordering the park. We are the land of living skies. Don't obstruct this majestic view. Thank you.
Any questions? our next delegation is Sandy Robertson.
Hi, I'm Sandy Robertson. I'm also, like your past few speakers, a resident of Douglas Park. We found Douglas Park by accident and we love it and we're staying there. And I didn't come prepared to speak today, but I'm just going to bring up a couple points that people have said before. If you're looking for money for developing and for, you know, getting your higher density, not necessarily higher density, but to get more people in Regina, like Jim said, Taylorfield, Dudney Avenue. Just because we have a field near our house doesn't mean that you have to put up a 5-story building to fill it. Look at the cultural aspect and the visual integrity of Wascana Park. It's gorgeous. We're lucky. Everybody in the city uses it. It's got bike paths that go throughout the whole city. I hope that one day I have grandchildren. And I hope that when we go to Wascana Park, they won't say, "Grandma, what's that building?" "Oh, that's the legislature building." "Grandma, what's that building?" "Oh, that's the old campus." "Grandma, what's that really high building?" Well, that's a mistake that City Council made in 2024 when they thought they could get some money. So they put it all together and built that monstrosity. Gee, Grandma, it's ugly. I don't want that to be my future or my grandchildren's future. You opened the meeting with a nod to the treaties. And I think that because we are on treaty land, we need to maybe start respecting it a little bit more and think about what would fit in. Below 13 meters fits in fine with me. Above does not. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from Commission? Seeing none. Our next delegation is Diane Kilback, who will be joining us virtually. Diane, whenever you're ready.
Is the city willing to drop the high?
Dan, go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
To make money at the expense of our park and its bordering neighborhoods.
Diane, if I could ask you to mute your computer or television, whatever's providing the feedback.
Oh, okay.
There's a bit of a delay.
Okay, I'm just, I don't really want to talk. Anything I've wanted to say has been addressed. I just want to let you know that I'm opposed to it.
Okay.
If that's okay.
You can say whatever you please, so long as it's related. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm just not comfortable speaking. I'm not good at that kind of thing. So, and pretty much everything that I was going to say has been addressed. So, but you can mention my name and just tell them I'm opposed to it, or because of all the reasons that I'm hearing already.
Okay, perfect. Just so you know, Diane, you are live at the meeting, so everybody knows. And if you don't want to say anything else, that's perfectly fine.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Encourage you to continue listening.
Bye.
All right, the next delegate is Jenna Schroeder. When you can, just introduce yourself for the record and begin.
All right, thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is Jenna Schrader. I'm the Executive Director of the Provincial Capital Commission based in Regina. And I'm here today on behalf of the PCC Board of Directors and the administration. Before I begin my remarks, I wanted to thank the city officials for meeting with me and the PCC Board of Directors in advance of today's meeting. Continued dialogue will be important as we move forward with planning for additional residents in this city. As I mentioned in January, the PCC is a statutory partnership between the Government of Saskatchewan, the City of Regina, and the University of Regina. The PCC is guided by the Wascana Centre Master Plan, which provides a roadmap to guide future growth, development, and sustainability in Wascana Centre and beyond. The master plan is similar to the city's OCP and zoning bylaw. The pillars or purposes of the master plan are development of the seat of government, enlargement of educational and research opportunities, advancement of cultural arts, improvement of recreational facilities, and conservation of the environment. The Wascana Centre Authority, predecessor of the PCC, and the City of Regina have been working collaboratively on development in proximity to Wascana Centre for over 50 years. In 1972, the Wascana Centre Authority and the City of Regina formed a special joint committee to study potential development around Wascana Centre. The preliminary report of this committee was published in February 1973, and this report details the committee's assumptions and mechanisms developed to protect views of the legislative building and Wascana Centre, and manage development in proximity to Wascana Centre. And a copy of this report was included in your package. Commentary on building heights in proximity to Wascana Centre has been included in the master plan since 1977. In the 1982, 1987, and 1992 versions of the master plan, sections were included on the views of the legislative dome and visibility of surrounding development. The existing 2016 master plan provisions on building heights were shared with you in January. Chapter 8 of the city's zoning bylaw 2019 contains a height overlay zone in the vicinity of Wascana Centre. The height overlay zone in figure 8GF2 corresponds with the area of potential height restriction map on page 111 of the 2016 master plan. The development standard contained in subclause 8G43 corresponds to page 135 of the 1992 master plan, which states, development over 13 meters is discretionary, and the city has agreed to include the center in evaluations for all development proposals. If these provisions are removed from the city zoning bylaw, as presented in the item before you, the PCC loses the formal ability to participate in development decisions, which may impact Wascana Centre. Provisions of the Special Joint Committee's 1973 report are relevant to consider when determining how changing the approach to building heights and development could impact Wascana Centre. Specifically, page 4.1, visually protect the amenities of the centre, and particularly the legislative dome, so that all can enjoy in perpetuity the open, natural quality of the centre and be oriented by one of the strongest, architecturally significant, and symbolic structures in the centre, the legislative dome. Page 5.10. The city has a responsibility to Wascana Centre to have controls which will not be a detriment to Wascana Centre. The city is not restricted to the enjoyment of the adjacent property owners, nor does it exist for speculative gain, but rather Wascana Centre is for all people of Saskatchewan. Conversely, Wascana Centre should not develop to the detriment of the city centre. Page 7.1. Ensure that intensities of development in building bulk, height, and human density do not disproportionately develop beyond the centers and the city's ability to accommodate them. Page 7.5. Clarify to what extent does Wascana Centre serve the built-up population around the boundaries of the centre, and to what extent is it to serve the population of the whole of the Saskatchewan region. At the March 15, 2024 board meeting, the following motion was passed. That the PCC Board of Directors directs PCC's Executive Director and Administration to work collaboratively with City of Regina Administration to 1. Undertake a study to model building heights in the area surrounding Wascana Centre. 2. Determine significant viewpoints of the legislative building from within and outside the boundaries of Wascana Centre. 3. Determine significant viewpoints of natural elements from within and outside the boundaries of Wascana Centre. And 4, create development standards that maintain unobstructed views of the legislative building and natural elements from designated viewpoints. There was a second part of the amendment, or second part of the motion, and that the PCC Board of Directors directs PCC's Executive Director and Administration to work collaboratively with City Administration and developers to review upcoming development proposals in proximity to Wascana Centre. Work on the building height model is underway. Initial results are anticipated to be shared with City Council in April. I ask that decisions impacting Wascana Centre's height overlay be deferred temporarily while data is being gathered to help inform Council's decisions. Continued collaboration is needed to balance the city's intensification goals with PCC's goals of improving recreational facilities and conserving the environment. And thank you. I'd be pleased to answer any questions the committee has.
Thank you. Any questions from commission? Councillor Nelson, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. So, Jenna, what you're asking us is just to delay this until that report comes back. Am I correct in your understanding through the chair?
And through the chair, yes, Councillor Nelson, I'm just asking for a bit more time to collect some data so that we can demonstrate and show what the impact of a 20-meter high building would look like, particularly on the transit corridors of Albert and Broad Street that are outlined in this report as being areas for intensification.
So Chair, actually I'd like some clarity then. Can we just table this report until after theirs comes in? Is that following proper procedure through the chair?
Yeah, I'll pass it off to the clerk for the procedural question.
Okay, thank you very much.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the board does have the delegated authority to table. However, the recommendation, a recommendation still has to go forward to City Council. And so if the board moved to table this item, then the recommendation would go forward to City Council that they approve the tabling of the item. And so it would not effectively be tabled by this commission at this meeting, but rather the recommendation and then the April 10th City Council meeting in which that final decision would be made. So the recommendation from the Planning Commission would be for City Council to table it.
Okay, so we would ask for this to be tabled, then that recommendation goes to City Council, and City Council ultimately has the power to say whether it's tabled till the report comes back?
That's correct.
So, Councillor Stevens, I'm going to ask that this be tabled, with a recommendation going to City Council that we're going to table this until the report comes back.
Okay, thank you. So I'll make that as a note, but we haven't got to the report. We still have some delegations to hear from.
Oh, great, sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
That's all
Did
I
you have any further questions?
No, that's good. That's all I have. The questions I can ask afterwards when we decide on what we're doing.
Thank you.
Forward. Thank you.
There, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for the delegation. I just want to make sure that I fully understand. So right now, the board of directors and administration are not recommending to go ahead or not go ahead. They're recommending that the city waits until this report is finished and concluded so that this information can help sway whether to go ahead with removal of the height overlay or to go forward with it. Is that correct?
Thank you for the question, and through the chair, yes, right now what the direction I've received from my board is continue to work with the city, continue to collaborate and try to find solutions together. So right now I don't have an answer on do we support, do we not support. It's
Great.
Let's gather some more information. So yes, your assumption is correct.
Great. So then would there be, is it within the realm of possibility that there would be portions of the height overlay that the board would recommend either going ahead with or raise no concern to, and other portions that they would recommend holding on to? Or is it, do you anticipate a binary go with it, don't go with it answer? Or are you leaning one way or the other on that at all?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and through the chair, right now I can't say definitively, but I have a feeling that once the study comes back, it will be pretty clear what areas are continuing to be sensitive, what areas do we want to protect, and potentially if there are areas where there is no visual impact, those might be areas that we would recommend removing that height overlay area on. But the study should give us some more information. Given the time constraints we're at right now, we're really focusing on Albert Street and Broad Street, so there is a larger area of that suggested height overlay that we may not be able to look at right now. But the consultants that I have working on it are, they're going to be able in the next couple of days to show me some preliminary data. So they are moving through quite quickly on getting the information.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, John.
Okay. Excuse me. Through the chair to the delegation, you went pretty quickly through the 4 points that were in the motion. Could you just relay those?
Sure.
I think I wrote most of them down, but maybe with the without the clock ticking, can you give us those again? So,
Yes, thank you so much. And through the chair, I realized 5 minutes and I timed myself and I was already over 5. So to give folks some more time here, and this is all also posted online, the Provincial Capital Commission Board of Directors posts a meeting summary after every one of our meetings. But what that motion was, and there were 2 parts to it. The first part was that the Provincial Capital Commission Board of Directors directs the PCC's Executive Director and Administration to work collaboratively with City Administration to, the first one is undertake a study to model building heights in the area surrounding Wascana Centre. 2, determine significant viewpoints of the legislative building from within and outside the boundaries of Wascana Centre. 3, determine significant viewpoints of natural elements from within and outside the boundaries of Wascana Centre. And 4, create development standards that maintain unobstructed views of the legislative building and natural elements from designated viewpoints. And then the second part of that motion was that the PCC Board of Directors directs Provincial Capital Commission's Executive Director and Administration to work collaboratively with City Administration and developers to review upcoming development proposals in proximity to Wascana Centre.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Next chair, question through the chair. Could you just recount again sort of how long, in your view, the historical guidance to protect the height around Wascana Park has been in the master plan? You went through a few dates there pretty quickly. I don't know if you could just give that context again.
Sure, thank you so much. And through the chair, as far back as we could find in our research, and the report that I provided in the package is something that we actually got from Provincial Archives. So it is a publicly available document. But that special joint committee was formed in 1972. And there were several meetings of that committee. They had published their report early in 1973. And from what we've been able to gather is that report was the foundation of developing the cones of vision. And this is a document that I've had a little bit more trouble trying to track down. I do have a map of the cones of vision from the 1977 master plan that was prepared at the time by the architect planner Jack Long. But coming from 1977, we can see through the versions of the master plan, and I do have physical copies of the master plans with me if anybody wants to thumb through them. But having height overlay protections in the 1977 master plan started off as just referencing the cones of vision, but additional work was done throughout the end of the 70s and into the 1980s, from what I can tell collaboratively between the city and the Wascana Centre Authority at the time. What I had included in the package from the 1992 version of the master plan, a lot of the sections were pretty consistent. So in 1982, 1987, 1992, those sections were relatively consistent, and that's why I just chose to include the 1992 version. There's slight changes in wording between each of the versions, but what happened in the 1999 version of the master plan is there was a map from what I had included for you folks. It is, just to hold it up here from the 1992 version, these significant locations throughout the city where there were views of the dome. That map was dropped for the 1999 version of the master plan, and I don't have the records of why it came out. But this map with the area of surrounding visibility, this is the black and white version, but what we have in the 2016 version of the master plan, it's the height area in red. This, from what I can tell in this format, has existed since 1987. So through the various versions of the master plan, and we started off in the 5-year review cycle, moved to a 7, and now we're going to a 10. There's been some form of recognition of protecting heights of development around Wascana just to make sure that we're maintaining views of the legislative building and significant natural features. And what I could tell as well from this research is that how how we got to the master plan as it is now was that collaborative effort between Wascana Centre Authority and the City of Regina. So it's a long-standing history of working together.
Okay, final question through the chair. Can you help describe what the consultation process was that was followed with the PCC?
Through the chair, can I just ask the clarification, consultation process of which?
On this proposed change with the city, between city and Provincial Capital Commission, I guess.
So for the proposed change, the item that's before us here today, before this meeting, I was able to meet with city officials. City officials did come to present to the Provincial Capital Commission Board of Directors. I do understand that with the Housing Accelerator Fund, that initiatives are happening quite quickly, understanding that it's a federal program here and there are timelines to be met. So it's a bit of a truncated consultation process, but it is something that we have been discussing.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Maynard, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, I just have one question, I think. First of all, thank you for the presentation, and to all the presenters here today, thank you very much. Are you saying that the Provincial Capital Commission, subject to what the report says, has the potential of being offside with provincial legislation or just offside with the master plan? Or did I misunderstand both of those?
Through the chair, thank you for that question. Since the presentations that I gave to Regina Planning Commission and City Council in January, we've had an opportunity, one of the meetings with the city solicitors and the legal support that I get from the Ministry of Justice, really digging into the legislative authorities. And the conclusion of that meeting was that based on what's in the Provincial Capital Commission Act, all of the land within Wascana Centre, and that area is defined in the schedule, is under the control of the Provincial Capital Commission. Now, there is that verge area, and this is where legal definition and then how we internally have been referring to the verge to mean the whole area in outline, there's a mismatch there. So the legal definition of the verge as it is in the as it is in the Provincial Capital Commission Act, just give me a moment, I have it here with me and I can just clarify that. It does say, this is section 7-21 of the Provincial Capital Commission, and it says, in this section, verge means all land lying between the boundary of the Wascana Centre where it abuts on a street, road, or lane, and the nearest part of the street, road, or lane that is intended for the use of vehicles. So the legal extent of PCC's authority is that verge, which is the very narrow area. Now, this height overlay area that is outlined in red, this is the collaboration area, and as we can, as demonstrated from the years, the decades of working together, that's how we ended up with this area. But legally, PCC does not have the authority to stop any kind of development in that area. But what is contained through former versions of the master plan and what's existing in Chapter 8 right now of the city zoning bylaw is that collaboration, that if it's over 13 meters, it's considered discretionary. The city has the authority to make that decision, but that they will consult with the Provincial Capital Commission, Wascana Centre Authority before that. I hope that helps.
It does. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. That's it.
Perfect. Thank you. See no further questions. Thank you very much. You may return to the gallery. Our final delegation is Angela L. with the El Ritchie Community Association.
All right. Good evening, or good early evening, guys. My name is Angela L. I'm with I'm the president of the Ritchie Community Station Board of Directors. Sorry, I'm all stuffed up. I got some sinus issues here. We weren't given a lot of time to prepare. We were told at 1:45 that we had to have, if we wanted to speak, and we were supposed to be in by noon, so sorry for the little bit of disarray here. So are you aware the El Ritchie neighborhood has an El Ritchie neighborhood land use plan? Okay, we're all aware of this, yes? Okay, so I'm here to speak on behalf of the proposed zoning bylaw changes and how it's going to affect our neighborhood plan. So we, the El Richie Community Association Board of Directors and residents, are told that despite the fact that El Richie having a neighborhood plan, which should set out limitations to potential construction in our neighborhood, it is our understanding that elements of this proposed project run counter to certain limitations that we have in our neighborhood plan. Now, how does the Regina Planning Commission make decisions or recommendations that clearly run counter to previously agreed upon bylaw and zoning limitations? What recourse can we have as a neighborhood to appeal these decisions? And, if refused, what purpose was the multi-year negotiation and advocating our neighborhood did to finalize our neighborhood plan if the city is simply going to ignore it when it is financially or politically expedient to do so? We would remind the Planning Commission that neighborhoods like ours are volunteer run. The hundreds and hundreds of hours we dedicate to protect our community spaces are done so to enhance the quality of life of our residents, an objective that should not be counter to the work you are doing. Now, I'm just going to make a little comment about the city's goal, the ESF, the Energy and Sustainability Framework, zero net goals and lowering emissions. Now, how will the commission, the Regina Planning Commission, what is your strategy to see that developers are going to adhere to these goals? And the funding that has been put to these programs, who is monitoring and where's the accountability for the money that is spent from these programs? And just another little comment about our housing crisis, that it's not so much a housing crisis as that it's more of an affordable housing crisis is what we seem to be seeing here. But anyways, it just seems as though that we are almost always in opposition, and it's just like, it's like, why do you purposely ignore the past agreements that have been so hard fought and won in the past? So I'm just basically asking, Planning Commission, how is this going to relate to our neighborhood plan now? And what are the repercussions is what the El Richie would like to know.
Thank you. Any questions from commission? Seeing none, thank you very much. Sorry, you're looking for a response. We're not going to be able to provide it, but I will make sure.
I know you can't, but this, this is just something that should be brought up, that is just, all we were given was just basically that there will be implications, but it never went any further than that. It's just there's implications and that's that. So we're kind of left in limbo, and like I said, there was a lot of hard work put into this.
Yeah.
A lot of hard work.
Clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'll need a motion to approve 2 communications as a receive and file. One is RPC 24-9 from the Provincial Capital Commission. The other is RPC 24-10 from the Regina Airport Authority. Again, I just need a motion to receive and file these 2 communications. Commissioner Sontag, any opposed to the receive and file of these documents? These right here.
Yep, so there's one from
Yeah.
Schrader and then one.
Yeah, you reference both of those.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they're just those 2.
11, sorry. That's what the problem is. RPC-11.
Okay. Yeah, just different numbering on what I have here, but it's the same 2. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So what we'll do first is I'll pass the floor over to administration There's a couple procedural items we need to tend to before we get into putting the main motion on the floor, but I will ask Ms. Pfeiffer to introduce, Ms. Bryden, please go ahead.
I don't know. I never remember the procedural order of things.
I got a sheet that I'm following, but whoever wants to talk, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'll do an introduction to the
Okay.
report, and then Ms. Pfeiffer will do a presentation on the actual report. So this item relates to phase 2 of our work under the Housing Accelerator Fund planning initiatives. In the fall, under the city made a commitment to the federal government under the Housing Accelerator Fund to implement an action plan consisting of 11 initiatives, and council approved those initiatives in June of 2023. 5 of the 11 initiatives involve adjusting planning policies and regulations to eliminate barriers to housing development and foster diverse housing options citywide. Additionally, council approved the Housing Accelerator motion in November of 2023, directing administration to allow additional housing units to be developed as of right. At that time, council expressed a desire to expedite this direction to support housing development for the upcoming 2024 development season. In January 2024, council approved phase 1 of our work, which primarily focused on amending existing provisions in the zoning bylaw. These amendments permit additional dwelling units per lot in low-density residential areas, increase permitted height limits in mid- and high-density residential and mixed-use zones, and change citywide parking minimums from required to recommended. Today, we're here to talk about phase 2 of our planning initiatives outlined in the Housing Accelerator Action Plan. This report seeks council's approval of the proposed primary intensification areas located within 200 meters of main transit routes and nodes, and the repealing of the Wascana Height overlay zone of the Regina zoning bylaw 2019. As indicated in the report, administration has met with the PCC. As you've heard, the PCC continues to be interested in monitoring development where there may be impacts on significant viewpoints. Administration has reviewed background information and conducted on-site investigation, and it's our position that there are not really views of the legislative dome from outside the park that we would consider to be significant to protect. Through the report, your administration has identified the city's priority of accommodating housing options as opposed to potential viewpoints. However, we look forward to continuing work with the PCC to identify new processes to jointly ensure visitors and citizens of Regina can continue to enjoy and experience the Wascana Centre without limiting housing options. It should be noted, the amendments we're proposing will not consider any changes to what can be built within the park. That is not within the city's authority, and we're not proposing any changes there. It is also important to note that within the overlay, a 20-meter building can still be constructed, but it would be considered as a discretionary use as opposed to permitted as of right. It's also important to remember that 20 meters as of right would not apply everywhere surrounding the park, just within the primary intensification areas that are proposed in the report. I will also note, administration has been discussing concerns in relation to the restriction of the overlay over the past year with the PCC through the discussions on their master plan. The recommendations of this report represent a significant stride forward in expanding citywide options and align the council's accelerating housing motion. Administration will bring additional reports in the coming months to fully implement the 5 planning-related initiatives identified in the city's Housing Accelerator Fund Action Plan. Thank you for considering this report, and Ms. Pfeiffer will do a presentation to talk in more detail about the changes being proposed.
Thank you. Good afternoon. As Ms. Bryden mentioned, my name is Laura Pfeiffer. I'm the manager of City Revitalization. And with me today is Amar Guliani, our senior planner, who is leading the expanding citywide housing options work. We're back today to speak to you about the work that our staff have been doing on the city's Housing Accelerator Fund Action Plan. As Ms. Bryden mentioned, in particular, we're here to present the second set of amendments to the zoning bylaw to support implementation of the city's HAF planning initiatives. Oh, I always get this wrong. Oh, it's not working. Just give us a moment here. It's not working. I can just give you a flag too if you want to advance the slides. Okay, that sounds great. So you can advance the slide. Thanks, Martha. There we go. So the last time that we were at RPC, we provided quite a lot of background information on the Housing Accelerator Fund program from the federal government, as well as the city's action plan. So today we're just going to recap the initiatives in the city's HAF action plan and the council direction that our work is advancing before walking through the specific amendments in the report. And you can actually advance 2 slides, Martha, thanks. So as you'll recall, the city included 11 initiatives in its HAF action plan, initiatives that are designed to support the development of housing to meet the needs of our city and align with the city's priorities, including supporting the development of complete communities with diverse housing options and achieving our long-term growth targets. The 5 initiatives that are highlighted on the screen focus on changes to planning policies and regulations. These are the initiatives that our team is leading and are aimed at expanding housing options citywide and increasing certainty for housing development. The objective of the planning policy initiatives really is about ensuring that we enable development of housing and housing types to meet the needs of current and future residents. As we've mentioned previously, we've seen record population growth in recent years and a corresponding drop in rental vacancy rates. And it is important that we support housing options for people who are moving to our city and for people who want to stay here. As we've mentioned previously, it's also important that we guide growth and development to make efficient use of existing infrastructure and make our established neighborhoods more resilient to change over time. As a reminder, in addition to the direction that was outlined in the city's HAF action plan that was approved by Council in June of 2023, Council provided additional direction in November of 2023 for administration to advance specific zoning bylaw amendments to remove barriers to housing development. So I won't read the entirety of the motion that is up on the screen, but as Ms. Bryden said, it speaks to allowing additional housing units to be built on residential lots, increasing permitted heights for multi-unit housing in proximity to main transit routes, and removing parking minimums, in particular in proximity to transit. And at the end of January, Council approved the first phase of those amendments, which largely spoke to point 1, point A, and point 2 of that direction. And today we're here to talk primarily about 1, point C. We're advancing the HAF initiatives and the council direction in phases over the next few months. However, we know that this work will also require additional refinement, monitoring, and analysis to support the delivery of housing options and fully realize these changes beyond these initial timelines. Today, as was mentioned, we're here to discuss the second phase of work, which focuses on confirming main transit routes and permitting multi-unit development up to 6 stories in height within 200 meters of those main transit routes. The amendments brought to you today advance the following: aligning the city's strategic documents as they relate to defining main transit routes, delineating a 200-meter walking distance from these routes as primary intensification areas, and allowing multi-unit development up to 6 stories in these areas. I'm now going to ask Mr. Guliani to walk through the details.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Pfeiffer, and good evening, members of the Planning Commission. The first goal of this report is to align strategic policy documents about transit. Specifically, we are focused on ensuring alignment between the official community plan, the transportation master plan, and the Regina Transit Master Plan. This synchronization aims to maximize the effectiveness of our strategies, which will be discussed in more detail in the following slides. For phase 2.1 work, we started by considering current and future main transit routes and transit hubs outlined in the recently adopted Regina Transit Master Plan, or RTMP for short. These routes and hubs are strategically aligned with major roads, ensuring effective connectivity to key destinations throughout the city. They also resonate with the concept of express transit corridors and transit nodes as identified in the OCP and the Transportation Master Plan. It's essential to note that these routes and hubs are based on the 25-year conceptual network plan within the RTMP and will ensure to serve as the foundational framework for any future implementation of BRT or bus rapid transit services. While most of the RTMP routes remain unchanged, we are proposing a minor adjustment to the network by relocating the main transit route on 4th Avenue between Albert Street and Lewin Drive to 5th Avenue. This relocation is strategic, aiming to enhance transit service frequency along the local commercial street in the North Central neighborhood, and by aligning with existing commercial activities and local amenities, we can better serve the needs of the residents and promote higher density development in the area. Additionally, we are proposing to add a transit hub at the Golden Mile Shopping Center location. This will ensure consistency between the RTMP and the Transportation Master Plan. And lastly, since the RTMP was adopted more recently, it provides a more detailed direction for transit. So we are proposing some minor amendments to the OCP and the TMP to ensure consistency of terminology and routes within these strategic documents. We work with transit staff to confirm the realignment of 4th to 5th Avenue and all other minor adjustments brought forward to you today to the OCP and the TMP. The second goal of this report is to delineate primary intensification areas where 6-story multi-unit residential buildings can be permitted as of right. The OCP provides a broad direction regarding intensification areas and boundaries within which intensification can occur. It serves as a guiding document for accommodating new development within existing urban areas where intensification can be achieved through various practices such as building conversions, infill development, and the redevelopment of existing areas. Through the amendment brought to you today, we propose to introduce intensification areas within 200 meters of the main transit routes. These proposed primary intensification areas are shaded in teal color on this map. These areas will permit multi-unit residential and mixed-use buildings up to 20-meter in-building height, which is up to 6 stories as of right within these areas, promoting distributed densities along major streets and near transit hubs. Please note that we are moving into, as we move into future phases, this map may change to accommodate additional work relating to transit. However, through this report, we propose to propose amendments to the OCP Part A policies to ensure conformity with the OCP and associated neighborhood plans and remove barriers to multi-unit development in the proposed primary intensification areas. The third goal of this report relates to amending the zoning bylaw to permit additional height within the proposed primary intensification areas. Currently, within the PIAs, which is short for primary intensification areas, there is a mix of zones with various height permissions. Lots zoned R1, RU, RN permit up to 4 units per lot with a building height of up to 11 meters depending upon the location. Lots zoned RL, RH, and ML permit multi-unit development up to 15 meters in building height. And lastly, lots zoned MH and MLM permit mixed-use development up to 20 to 30 meter building height. The proposed amendment will provide overarching permissions to allow multi-unit development up to 6 stories or up to 20 meter building height on all lots within these areas. It's worth noting, though, that over 70% of the land within the primary intensification areas already permits multi-unit residential and mixed-use development within permitted heights of at least 15 meters. These areas are shown in red on this map. And for the other areas shown in teal, the overarching provisions will permit multi-unit development up to 20 meters in addition to the underlying zone provisions. So what does this mean? Outside of the PIAs, current zoning permissions will continue to stay in effect. This includes low, medium, and high density zones. For example, on lots zoned RL and RH and ML outside of the PIAs, multi-unit development will above 15 meter in height will continue to be discretionary. However, within the PIA, they will become permitted up to 20 meters in building height. Similarly, on low-density lots, the maximum permitted building height outside of the PIAs will continue to be up to 11 meters, depending on the location of the lot. And within the proposed changes or the PIAs, they will also permit a multi-unit residential development up to 20 meters in building height. Again, it's important to note that these changes do not limit the ability to develop what is currently permitted in the underlying zone, including a single-family home. Similarly, many properties within the PIAs shown in teal on this map are subject to the Wascana Height Overlay Zone. This zone was established in alignment with the objectives of the Wascana Center Master Plan regarding building heights, limits near the Wascana Park boundary, and the Provincial Capital Commission's desire to preserve sightlines within and outside of the park. As a result, buildings within the overlay zone exceeding 13 meters in building height are subject to a discretionary use process. Through the HAF work, we are committed to permitting up to 20 meters of building height as of right within the PIAs. Following Council's direction on January 31st, 2024, we have further engaged in discussions with the PCCs regarding the overlay. After reviewing background information and conducting on-site investigations, we believe that there are no views of the legislative dome from outside of the park that we deem significant enough to warrant protection. Therefore, we are looking forward to continue working with the PCC to ensure that the park is good for both visitors and residents of Regina to enjoy. But through this report, we are proposing to repeal the Wascana Center height overlay to prioritize the delivery of additional housing options within the city. It's worth noting that repealing the Wascana height overlay will not impact lots zoned R1, RU, and RN, or low-density areas, as the maximum permitted height in these areas is up to 11 meters anyway. Similarly, for lots that are medium density or high density zoned outside of the PIA, the height will be discretionary above 15 meters. What will change is that lots within the PIA will allow to have a maximum permitted height of 20 meters. Sorry, one slide back. As for the next steps, okay. As for the next steps, as noted earlier, the amendment presented before you today are another step to support the delivery of HAF initiatives in the direction of council. In the coming months, additional work will be done to ensure alignment of planning policies, support additional housing in proximity to main transit routes and hubs, reviewing of the development standard and current discretionary use processes. We also know that this is an evolving piece of work and that monitoring and making adjustments and refinements will be needed along the way. And with that, we are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. I believe we're at our legislative break. So we're going to recess for 30 minutes. And then when we come back, pardon me, we'll dig into questions and the report at hand. All right? Right. Yeah, so we'll need a motion for 30 minutes. Is there food? Hey man, if you want to scarf down food, that's fine, but all right. Any opposed? Perfect. Okay. Trina, is that an opposition to the recess, or did you have a question?
No, I just have a question when we get back from the half an hour break. That's fine.
You bet. All right. Yeah, no worries. Commission, we're about to get started. Can I confirm that everybody who's joining us online is back from their break? If you just want to put your hand up, Trina, I see yours, I'll assume you're there. If the others want to put their hand up, just to confirm. All right, we're set. Okay, thank you. All right, so just a couple of housekeeping matters before we get back on track here. So I know there has been a discussion of a tabling motion. There could be a follow-up discussion about a referral motion. For members of the public as well as members of the commission, either of those motions go ahead. There's no debate. So what I would ask of members of commission is if you wish to pursue a referral motion or if you wish to pursue a tabling motion, I would ask that you signal your intention, but allow for there to be questions from commission to administration. There has been a lot said. I think there's a lot of questions. I don't want to shut down debate. When this goes to council, I think it's really important that council has some guidance, and if there's no discussion here, they'll get a referral or a tabling motion recommendation. I won't have anything to speak to when it comes to why that took place. I'm asking your indulgence because, of course, you could exercise your right and force a vote if you so please, but there's plenty of time here for discussion on an important matter. So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to ask someone to amend the report, to advance the report as amended. There are some minor typographical issues in Appendix D. So when I say it's amended, administration has provided commission with some very minor non-substantive changes. We're going to pursue that along with the main motion. Can I? Yeah. Yeah. You bet. So if I can get a motion, please. All right, Jordan. It is your right to speak first, but if you don't wish to exercise your right, that's fine. I will move on to another member of the commission who has their hand up. All right. Councillor Nelson, go ahead, please.
I'm having problems with my computer and everything else that's electronical today. I'm just going to wait to hear, and then I'll figure out what I'm going to do after that. So just go ahead. I was just going to raise my hand to table something, but I'll wait. Speaks, Councillor, that'll be fine.
You bet. Yeah, we'll certainly come back to you. Maybe I'll put a second call out to questions, but I'll pay attention to folks online. Anyone online wish to speak? No? Oh yeah. Go ahead, Kathleen, and we'll come back in. Go ahead.
Hi there, through you, the chair. I have a couple questions. One question to admin on if we did table this today, what would be the impact to the timelines of the accelerator fund?
We'd like to take that. Go ahead, Ms. Bryden.
Through the chair, I'll take this, and if I need to be corrected, I'll be corrected. So if this is tabled, it would be tabled to council, as I understand it, through the council officer. It would be tabled to council, and then council would have the discussion. I think the biggest impact on tabling this motion, as outlined by the chair, is there would be no conversation at this particular commission on any of these changes.
Oh, perfect. So if it were tabled today, there wouldn't be implications, I guess, to like long-term timelines or project funding or anything moving forward?
Ms. Dawson would like to add.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the question. We are committed to bringing amendments to our policy and zoning bylaw as quickly as possible. We have outlined a path in our application for Housing Accelerator Fund to have these achieved by September of 2024. And so when Ms. Pfeiffer was going through her presentation, she provided kind of our phasing of our work, and this is the second phase. And so we really wanted to identify those primary intensification areas and get those solidified so that we can continue on with the remainder of our work. And so if we don't get those solidified in short order, it will delay the subsequent phases of our work.
Perfect, thank you. Through you, the chair, I have another question. Just in regards to the some of the questions we heard today from some of the delegations, can you confirm, like, my understanding is the Douglas Park development is outside of the primary intensification area we're discussing today? Can you, does what we're approving today actually impact that project? Can you confirm that for me?
Thank you. Through the chair, Mr. Mario is helping manage that file, and so he's going to explain kind of the parameters of that project, which is a separate application for commission that you would see in the near future, but we're not discussing it today.
Yeah, through the chair, so I'll just provide an overview of how that project would be affected by today. So tentatively, we're slated to bring that forward to Planning Commission on May the 28th, and it is a discretionary use and a rezoning. It's a discretionary use because it is within the Wascana height overlay, which means that anything over 13 meters would need to be a discretionary use, and it's also a discretionary use because it's over 15 meters, which is the regular threshold within the zone that it's proposed to be rezoned to. So if council resolves to remove the Wascana height overlay, it won't be a discretionary use. For the 13 meters, it would only be a discretionary use because it is 15 meters. And it does impact some of our review criteria, which means that if the Wascana height overlay zone were removed, we wouldn't need to consider the potential relationship between the building and the Wascana Park. So our analysis would be silent on that part. If council decided to keep the overlay, or if it is in place still at the time that we bring it forward, then it would be a consideration in the overall evaluation of that application.
Perfect, thank you. If I'm allowed, I have one more question for admin. I realized this question was asked during phase 1, so we did discuss it, but can you touch on again the Al Ritchie brought forward their community neighborhood plan, which was approved in the last couple of years, just the impact of this work on that and how admin is planning to address that?
Ms. Dawson, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. So that work that we're going to be doing in terms of reviewing the neighborhood plans is going to be in the next phase of work. We do anticipate there will be changes within our neighborhood plans that we currently have established. And that's to, I guess, react or to make sure that we're undertaking the council-directed shift to addressing pressures citywide level and be more nimble to address housing. And so we will expect changes to neighborhood plans. What that looks like, you will see in our next report.
Perfect, thank you so much. That's everything from me.
Perfect, thank you. Jordan, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair. Thanks for the report that you delivered before the break. I guess, and I'm not trying to blow this up too big, but just broadly speaking, is it the position of administration that the changes between January and September will lead to benefits for housing affordability, or is it the position that it will help us to get federal money, or something else?
Go ahead, please.
Thanks for the question. So one of the purposes for the Housing Accelerator Fund, the federal program that's available to cities across Canada, is to support housing development more broadly. With an understanding that when you have situations like we're starting to see in the city with increasing population development and reduced vacancy rates, that can impact availability and affordability. So the position that we have taken both in the action plan that we had submitted to the federal government, and I think is also reflected in the direction from council, is to support more flexibility in how housing can be built throughout the city so that we can respond to the needs. there's specific initiatives in that action plan that speak about affordable housing specifically. That's not part of the work that we're here to talk about today. This is about, zoning regulations and policy changes that support the delivery of a variety of housing options. Whether they be market options, affordable options is not part of the work. It's about ensuring that there's flexibility in how housing's developed.
Thank you. And through the chair, so thank you. I appreciate that answer so much. And I guess what I'm trying to narrow in on is maybe something to the effect of, if it doesn't work, are we going to share the responsibility with the federal government, or is it going to be a failure of the federal government, or like where do we land on that?
Through the chairs, maybe just to clarify, like if we don't hit the housing targets that we have set out in our application to the federal government, like what are the implications of that? Sorry.
I guess, I mean, I understand your answer. The idea is to increase flexibility in the types of housing that will be available in the city of Regina because of this federal program. And so if we don't see an increase in the types of housing that is developed, even though it will now be allowed, is that considered just the market speaking? Is that considered a program that we tried that didn't end up? Or do we care if it actually leads to new types of housing being built? Or rather, is it more important just that in principle and in theory they could be built if someone proposed to build it?
Sure. Through the chair, so maybe I'll start by saying that the entire structure of the city's application to the Housing Accelerator Fund, and specifically speaking about those planning amendments, is structured to support the city's growth plan. So you see the initiatives that talk about higher density in the city center, increasing mid and high density development next to transit, generally supporting housing diversity. All of that aligns with the official community plan and the city's growth plan. And so I think what you're seeing is implementation of what that direction is, right? Providing some actual specificity on what does that actually mean to densify near transit, and looking at opportunities to actually action that. I think you're right that, through just previous discussions with CMHC and the federal government, there's an understanding that cities don't control what housing gets built, unless the city is in the business of building housing, but we're not. We're in the business of setting regulation to support housing to be built. So I would say it's important to provide flexibility so that the market can respond to the needs of residents and the ability of residents to access housing. So I don't necessarily think that if we don't get a specific type of housing being built, that it will be a failure of policy or a failure of the federal government's program. It would be a reflection of what the market can deliver and what the market is demanding.
Great. Yeah, through the chair, that answers my questions, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. John, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I got a few different avenues here I want to explore. So through the chair, I want to finish off some of the discussion about the Provincial Capital Commission. So one of the pages contributed was page 111 from the 2016 Wascana Center Master Plan. I think it was similar to older master plans from what I understand, but it talks about visibility of surrounding development. And I just want to kind of finish off thoughts on that. So I think there was sort of a vision of the development around the park being a certain height, so views from the park would not be seeing those adjacent development. Can the administration help us understand where that was in the conversation recently with PCC, and is it a factor in considering this? We're seeing a lot of the PIA in that area, it looks like, and repealing that overlay zone would kind of get away from that. So I just want to understand where that was in the thought process or decisions, I guess.
Yeah, through the chair. Certainly that was a conversation that we've been having. The experience of park users and ensuring that that is not impacted, by anything that the city is doing or allowing, or what's being built. And we understand that perspective, but we also understand access and usage of the park, and the availability of that for quality of life is important as well. And so what we're trying to do is balance different priorities, and what we've presented to you in our report is prioritizing expanding housing options near transit and near transit hubs, and that happens to be around the PCC as well.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Through the chair, balance of priorities is always a challenge, and I'm sure you guys grapple with it every day, so I like to hear that word. But I guess there's been like really long-standing planning. Like the report is 50 years old. I think the park master plan or plans have been much older than that. So are we at a point where we move away from that, I guess? I'm just asking that to thoroughly understand what the PCC's responses might be, and it's long-standing planning. To move away from that is quite a big move. I just make that comment. And has that been thoroughly explored with that group as well? I guess that's my question, I guess. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. That's a good question, and one that we've certainly contemplated and analyzed and discussed in detail, both internally and with the PCC when we met with the board. And I think it's a shift in how we build our city and how we prioritize certain elements within our city. And historic plans don't always, guide the way forever. There's sometimes a shift in what we build and how we build it and where we build it. And just due to the things that we're seeing currently within the city for the need for housing, we think that time is now to shift the way that we're developing and prioritizing housing.
Okay, thank you. One more, if I could. So there's another couple of other important overlay zones that I want to bring up, and certainly the airport overlay zone and the noise impacts overlay zone. The letter that we received dated March 26th from Mr. Bogus and the RAA brings up some of those impacts, and so I would say the planning folks at the airport may have missed a couple of things that happened in the recent past and not commented on them, and so they'll go unnamed at this desk, but I would say there's a few things that are in the HAF PIAs, I'm using a lot of acronyms here, but that would be impactful to some of those overlay zones. And so I'm a little bit torn at this table, because I would struggle to approve what's in front of me because it would go against some of the other zones. And so with an amendment, that might be one thing, or with knowledge of future planning initiatives that we have coming forward, that the RAA and the city are working on at this time to help the area around the airport be more well informed as to what development forms and things would be supported by the airport, is pending. So again, we're not going to be done by April 10th, but they're imminent, and so I'm struggling with how best to go forward. Could administration speak to how those might get plugged in to this HAF map and intensification boundaries and PIA? So.
Through you, Chair, good question, and perhaps I'll provide some additional background for the other commission members who might not be aware of some of the work that we're undertaking with the Regina Airport Authority. Currently, administration and the Regina Airport Authority are working on a study to understand what protections are needed to put in place for future protection of the airport and what that might mean for development within the city. So that work's currently underway. Mr. Mario's team is leading that work, and certainly we do understand that that's a statement of provincial interest, and it's important to economic development and everything that's been addressed in the letter that was submitted to Planning Commission. How we would see that moving forward is we would adhere to current processes where there's overlaid in place. We're not proposing to remove that overlay at all. We understand the importance of it, and if there was a property that's impacted currently by that overlay, certainly the current processes would follow suit. As we learn more through the study and the work that we're doing with the Regina Airport Authority, we would implement potential new overlay areas or potential new restrictions, but those have not been determined yet, and those would have to come later. Currently, we're following existing provisions and processes.
Thank you. Just to build on that, I think the report is, it's just that once this is passed, then it will be the zoning law of the land. Pending that information, it would have to perhaps change again. Is that process seemingly appropriate, I guess? Is that going to be confusing to the developers or your landowners, or like, is there a sliver of risk there that we are aware of, and things might get built that the next day, or they might get opportunities come forward that the next day they might not, as the airport work is finished? I guess I'm just a little bit concerned about that risk.
Yeah, so any amendments that come forward after the report is done have to go through the public process, whether that's through the official community plan amendment or zoning bylaw amendment, and it would have to be approved through council. So anything in the report isn't final until it's embedded in our bylaws and approved through the province, if it's an official community plan amendment, which I understand it will be. So at that point in time, anybody could, come forward with concerns or questions at that time and bring those forward to council. We do expect changes to the work that we're currently doing. I think in Mr. Giuliani's presentation, he said you can expect changes to the map for the intensification areas as we continue this work. And so we do expect changes well into 2024 and beyond, as we continue to explore how we can accommodate housing and, apply or remove restrictions where applicable. And that's I think the expectation that I would provide to you.
Okay. I think that's everything I have. Thank
Okay, we will just come back. Go ahead. Maynard, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, through you, Mr. Chair. I just want some context to this. I'm thinking financial context, aside from the fact, and by the way, my question is specific to the overlay area. Is there any way to put, as I said, financial context to what would be the impact of not moving forward on the overlay area as it relates to the Housing Accelerator Fund? Just on the overlay area, is that like, so does that make up sort of 5% or 20% or 50% of what would be anticipated to receive that funding?
Ms. Pfeiffer is volunteered to answer this question.
Through the chair, I think it's a good question. I don't know that it's something that we can answer with a lot of certainty.
I appreciate that.
I think it's probably something, anytime we make changes, we need to report them back. Like there's regular reporting with CMHC on the progress of our initiatives. So if there's changes, we would likely need to report that back and potentially have a discussion at that point. But I don't know that we would have a hard answer on, if there's a really like specific number I could point to at this point of what that impact would be.
Okay, thanks.
Jordan, go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry to bring you back to me. Through the chair, this is probably nitpicky and I'm almost embarrassed to ask it, but on the transit nodes and hub changes, would we have to have a, we're not calling it express transit anymore, forgive me, I don't remember.
BRT?
That's the one, the main transit route. Would we have to add that to Rose Street between 25th and Parliament in order to get to our node, our hub that's in behind Golden Mile there?
Through the chair, no, not necessarily. Currently, we operate on in the current location in the Golden Mile, so it's in behind there. So take that into consideration. But we could be moving out to the main corridors, where it's actually like on an Albert Street or a Broad Street, depending where the node is in the city.
That's all I had. Thank you.
I had a question about some of these tentative deadlines, and you might not be able to answer that, and I'm not sure if I got some clarification. But, you know, some folks had suggested, we recommended tabling motion. This would come back to council on April 10th. Would you imagine the PCC having some robust report at that point? I'm just kind of curious what our time frame is and if we have to defer it to wait for that information.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the conversations that we've had with the PCC on what is being proposed to be brought forward to the city have been very brief. We haven't had a meeting with their consultant as of yet. I don't have a full understanding of what would be brought back or what the scope of that work would be. It potentially could be a visual of what it would look like on Albert and Broad Street if the construction was up to 20 meters.
Okay. And could you clarify, is this part of a routine review, or has something been triggered, like something's very specific as a response to what we're proposing here? I know there's always a review of these master plans, but is this meant to inform us, or is it meant to create an argument as to why we should maintain the status quo when it comes to the sightline?
I can speak to the first question, and the master plan has been ongoing review. I think we were first engaged probably at this time last year or even before that. I know that it's been an ongoing project. We have provided some feedback in terms of how to better integrate city and park, both infrastructure and users. And one of the comments that we did provide back to the PCC on their master plan was the overlay. We had been identifying the concerns just through some previous applications. I think you'll remember the one just south of 23rd Evans Court. We brought probably 2 years ago now, and just last year there was an application in Canterbury. Both of them were over the discretionary use height limitation, and a referral was required to the PCC. Council did approve a height of over the 13 meters for both of those projects, and so we just identified that it was time to look at that again and see if that was something that was appropriate for development in and around the park. As to the reaction for the second scope of work here, that would be a better question for the PCC.
Fair. Okay, thank you. This is a very specific question for planners, given your professional expertise, but we've had a lot of discussion about quality of life. And some were suggesting that what we're proposing would somehow erode that quality of life. I need someone to help me understand what that means. So is there any evidence to suggest that the kind of building types, the kind of accessibility to transit we're talking about, the accessibility to public amenities, somehow erodes my life standards, life expectations, safety? I just need to know how quality of life is affected by what we're proposing. Can anybody answer that for me, please?
Through you, Chair. I think we could all answer it, but Ms. Pfeiffer is dying to answer it.
Well, at least I'll volunteer for it. Through you, I think that's a difficult question. I think you could ask 20 people and they would have a different explanation of what contributes to their quality of life. In our policy documents, we talk about ensuring people have access to amenities and services. That includes park space, that includes transit service, includes things like schools, community centers, daycares, things like that. So I would say from a policy perspective, supporting additional housing options for people who may not be able to access the housing that exists in neighborhoods today is important. I would also, suggest that when we look at kind of the city from a long-term perspective and understanding how demographic shifts in neighborhoods change over time, there can be really dramatic impacts to those things that contribute to quality of life. So if you have an aging population in a neighborhood and no ability for new families or young families to access the schools, that impacts the school populations, that impacts the businesses and their viability in neighborhoods. When you don't have access to housing options for people to age in place, that limits their ability to stay in their communities, things like that. So I don't know that you're going to get a hard answer on how do you quantitate or quantify, I guess is the right word, quality of life. Okay. But certainly from a policy perspective, access to those things that support people's daily life is important.
Okay, thank you. Because we're talking about changing our policies to enhance intensification, there's potential dollars from the federal government to realize the construction or expansion of housing development. And because we've heard from residents that, you know, which is usual, let's put everything on the Taylor Fields and the Yards lands. Incidentally, those people never live in those neighborhoods. And it's indicated on this map, even though the Taylor Field just kind of falls slightly outside of that. How do you respond to that? So where do we envision the Taylor Field land and the Yards land in this overall conversation? And secondly, can we use the HAF dollars, based on your understanding of it, to actually facilitate the development of those two projects?
Sure. Through the chair, so I think, again, if I can just bring it back to the city's growth plan, there's an overall target for intensification, and then there's specific numbers associated with specific areas, including the Yards and the Taylor Field lands. And I don't think that the two are exclusive. You know, supporting additional housing development in the city center complements additional development in those areas, complements additional density close to transit, complements housing options or more flexibility to deliver. And I don't necessarily think that they all work at odds together. With respect to how the city can use the money, I can speak at a really broad level that under the program, there's 4 kind of buckets of investments that the city can make. Investing in infrastructure, investing in community amenities, supporting affordable housing development, you know, supporting any, you know, anything that's needed essentially to deliver the initiatives. Those are kind of the 4 buckets. But I don't know that I'd be able to speak more specifically about what exactly those activities would be. And that's certainly not something that is led by our team.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. So I'll turn it back to the commissioners who are joining remotely. Councillor Nelson, I know you had signal intent to bring forward either tabling or referral motion. I'll put the call out again. Is there still an interest in that? And if you could maybe spell out the rationale for commission to consider.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. I do, my big consideration is PCC is, I mean, we need to be good neighbors. We have been good neighbors. All I'm asking for is for them to come back after they've done the work that they need to do and just give their recommendation. I'm just asking for them to have their 2 cents in this discussion. And I think as a city and as a community, we owe that to them. So, and I'll ask administration, if we table this just for this part of the report, will this cause any long-term effects on the funding that we're going to get? Through the chair.
Go ahead.
Through the chair. So again, I don't know that I could have a hard answer for you on that. I think depending on the direction that council gives with this report, we would be reporting back to CMHC on the progress with our initiatives, and perhaps a discussion would happen at that point. But I don't think I have a hard answer on what the implications would be.
Thanks for that. And I mean, this could go to council, and council could say, forget it, we're going to go through with this, and that's all there is to it. I just feel, I personally feel that the community, you know, their voices, and I really believe that their voices should be heard in this, and we owe it to them to allow them a little bit more time to bring back the report that they had suggested they want to bring back to us. So I'd like to go ahead with this tabling motion. I think you guys have all the wording for it, just the one part of it, I'm saying.
Yeah, we're going to bring that up right now, Trina.
Thanks, Councillor Stevens.
There we go. Councillor, I'm going to ask there might not be anything, but if members of commission have questions about this referral motion, are you okay with them asking it? Because procedure would dictate that it goes right to a vote and there's no discussion. It's your call. I would prefer discussion if anybody has questions. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone should have any more questions, but yeah, I'm open to that. I'm not going to close anybody off. I know it's a tabling motion, but I'm fine with questions.
Okay. Yeah. There might not be. I would just put it out to commission. Is there any comments or questions about the referral motion? Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, John.
Okay. I'd like to read Appendix F to understand what those 3 points are.
Perfect. So while you're reading that, maybe administration could provide us a high-level overview of what Appendix F is and what the implications would be of the referral motion. Sorry, who's taking that? Oh, there we go. Go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. The Appendix F is the table identifying the zoning bylaw amendments that would be presented in the report. Number 3 is the height overlay zone, and number 4 and 5 all relate to the height overlay zone and the amendments that would be needed to repeal that height overlay zone.
Did you have a follow-up, John?
I guess so. This amendment doesn't address my concern, so I don't know if it's appropriate because there isn't a specific amendment proposed that does, so.
So procedurally, because this does not refer the entire document back, but just specific elements, however this goes, if you wanted to propose something afterwards, it would be your right.
Okay, thanks.
All right, seeing no further questions on the referral motion, call vote.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So this motion is to refer just amendments number 3, 4, and 5, and it's a recommendation that City Council refer those amendments, just to be clear procedurally on that, of Appendix F, and then the main motion, we would then vote on the main motion as amended. So going to the vote, Councillor Nelson.
Favor.
Mr. Gaisier.
Oppose.
Commissioner Aston.
In favor.
Commissioner Sontag.
Opposed.
Commissioner Hopkins.
In favor.
Commissioner Wilson.
Opposed.
Mr. Chair.
Opposed.
So the motion is lost 4-3.
Councillor Nelson, did you have further questions or comments? Or
No,
motions?
that's all. No, I'm fine.
Okay. John, I'll turn the floor over to you if you wish to.
I just expressed concern that we're passing something that would then knowingly not align with other work that we're doing. So I realize that's coming in, and I don't know how to amend an emotion saying something else is coming. So I'm a little bit perplexed.
If I could offer some assistance. First, so to administration, there are justifiable concerns with what the airport has brought forward. They're not insignificant. So what could you say about how we can best address those concerns in a formal capacity? What kind of engagement is required? Do you require a motion from us to provide that direction to you?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would offer the same comments that I offered before. Those are still being developed and are in draft form, and those will need to be brought forward to council for consideration to allow us to implement those as policy and as regulation. In the interim, we're continuing to work with the RAA in developing this plan and understand, their importance. We currently have an overlay for the airport district in place, which we would continue to follow under current processes. However, until new policy and regulation is in place and approved through council and the province to bind that to any of the decisions that are happening today is a bit difficult through administration. I might see if Ms. Willoughby has anything else to add.
Thank you, through the chair. I don't really have anything else to add. As Ms. Dawson has indicated, any further proposed amendments, be it related to the airport or otherwise, will come forward through the normal process and may impact these regulations that are passed today or others that are on the books right now.
Through the chair, I appreciate those comments. On January 31st, I read a motion of City Council essentially up to quadruple the density of development in noise-exposed areas south of the airport specifically. I didn't know that happened. So I think respectful of process and all of those things, like, gosh, that's a big one. And I really can't support further intensification in those primary intensification areas. I missed the bus on that one. That's my fault, but like, it's going the wrong way here. I just really want to clarify that. We have lots in the OCP on noise-exposed areas and where not to put people. And so I think we need to think about that. And more work's coming, so, but we missed some of the stuff that's there, I feel, in a way. So thank you.
Okay. So what I could commit to is a couple of things. One, as chair, I will make that very clearly known when it comes to council. I can also, in my capacity, reach out to the airport authority and discuss that. I think we already have a commitment from the entire administrative team that those concerns will be part of the dialogue moving ahead in a formal capacity. So we can do all three of those things going forward. So I'd leave it to your best judgment on if you feel comfortable voting for the package of information here, but going to council, I can assure you that will be raised, and I want to make sure that everybody knows that that dialogue will continue. Okay. Any further comments or questions from Commission Online? Okay. Seeing none, ask for a vote.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So this is the main motion as amended with that amendment that was moved initially to replace Appendix D with the corrected version. And I will go to Commissioner Gaisier, who moved the report.
I am in favor.
Commissioner Sontag.
In favor.
Commissioner Aston.
In favor.
Commissioner Hopkins.
In favor.
Commissioner Wilson.
In favor.
Councillor Nelson.
In favor.
And Mr. Chair.
In favor.
The motion is carried 7-0. Main motion as amended.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Thanks, Maynard. All right. Any opposed to leaving? Seeing and hearing none, thank you very much, everyone. Great debate. Appreciate it.